Hi there, Andre here from Peak Motorcycles. Today I'm here in the Yorkshire sunshine in Ossett at Not Your Average Bikes, where they're going to let me take out one of their zero electric motorcycles. So I've been quite interested in electric bikes for a while. I've never been quite sure about the battery life and how they really compare. You know, one does miss the sound of an engine. But yeah, today I'm going to take this for a bit of a run around Yorkshire and see how I get on. So here we go. So this is the bike that I'm going to be riding today. So this is a Zero SRS. This is their touring version of the bike. It's got a 14.4 something battery. And yeah, it's got two seats, it's got pillion pegs, it's got the bigger motor, and it's got a fuel tank, which I was delighted to see is great for storing things like GoPros. So they come as quite a high spec, and this one's got a Showa big piston fork on the front of it. So one thing this bike is missing is obviously there's no clutch lever, and there is also no gear pedal, but other than that it's a proper full-size bike. It's belt drive rather than a chain, so there's almost no maintenance to it. They're quite heavy, but then again I ride a GS, so you know I'm used to heavy. I'll get out, I'll start riding, and we can see where we get to. So here we go. This is my first ride out on a Zero SRS. That's the graphic as it starts up. It's in street. So the only thing to make it go is turn the kill switch off. There's no starter. It won't go while the side stand is down. I can lift the side stand up, and there we go. I'm missing a start button or something.
Still go for neutral when you get that.
I'm sure I will. Sure I will. All right, I'll see you later. Yeah. So this is just such a weird sensation. It's just completely silent. There's nothing to do with my left hand, and it just trundles along. There is a bit of noise. So the very first thing is it really is just silent. I mean, there's nothing. There's no road noise. I can hear everything. I can hear the squeak of my visor. That is quite an odd sensation. Riding along like this, I'm just coming through a residential area. Now, considering just how much torque this bike can put out, I did wonder if it was going to feel a bit like trying to ride a very high-powered motorcycle slowly, where it be very snatchy. But the throttle response is just so delicate when you just roll it on a little, that whether you're just pottering through town traffic and you just really want to edge the bike forwards, it's just very, very easy to control. They are heavy bikes. Those batteries don't come for nothing, but all the weight is really low down. It's basically at the lowest point on the bike, and it really doesn't feel heavy at all. I had to weave through a bit of traffic to get out here, and yeah, I barely noticed it. Maybe that's because I'm used to riding a GS, which has kind of a similar thing. Now, the shape of these bikes, they do look very similar to a regular bike, including the fuel tank, but obviously there is no fuel to go into the fuel tank, and on a regular bike it's useful to have that high up just for refueling. Whereas on this bike there's nothing in there. It's just a bit like having a big storage box. So on this particular bike it's got the charging cables in there, so when I stop I'll show you what that looks like. There we go, just easy as you like, and as soon as you give it just a little bit it just takes off, and there are no gears, there's nothing to reach for, and suddenly out of nowhere you're usually doing 50-60 miles an hour, and it's silent. It's just such a weird feeling. It feels a bit like I'm flying. I can hear more wind noise than anything else. So there we go. Wow, it just goes coming off a roundabout, just opening it just the smallest amount of throttle, and it just flies. I just can't get used to how quiet it is. I'm used to even off the throttle on any of my other bikes, coming down a hill like this, there'd just be that constant verbal, engine braking. And yeah, all I can hear is the wind rushing. I can't even hear the motor itself does make a bit of a kind of a whine sound, but it's really, really quiet. This is, you know, a really odd experience. Let's try some country lanes. Yeah, even on these lanes, it's just so easy to control. I don't know why I thought it would be any different. I just thought it would be, I don't know, I think I've ridden a Segway and I've had to go on an electric scooter, a stand-up scooter. So my knowledge of electric vehicles is pretty limited. This is unique. Oh, I am feeling those bumps a little bit, but I don't think that's because this is an electric bike. I think it's just because that Showa big piston suspension is quite hard, and this is quite a bumpy lane. I don't know if you can see down there, but where the mirrors are located, I thought those looked like they're way down low. I'm used to kind of having them coming off the top of the bars, but actually they're just great. You can just have a quick glance down, easily see exactly what's behind you. And if you're wondering where I am, you might just be able to see ahead of me the rather large tower of the transmitter at Emily Moor, just south of Leeds, which is where I think a lot of the northern parts of the UK gets their television from. So I do have a bit of a problem, and the problem is that I'm a petrol head, or at least I'd like to think I'm a petrol head. For me, riding motorcycles, it's not just about the feeling you get on them, it's how they make you feel, and the sound and the responsiveness of a petrol engine is all a key part of that. So I did wonder if on an electric bike, when you remove all of that, whether it loses something. And part of me was thinking, yeah, I'm sure it does. And I think I'm wrong. I think this is a different sort of thrill, but a thrill it absolutely is. You know, you get the speed, you get everything else. I mean, it is silent, which makes quite a big difference, but it's just delightful. So I was always interested to try one. I didn't actually think I would like it enough to think that one day this is going to replace something that currently runs on petrol in my garage. And I'm not sure now. I'm really not. This is just so much fun to ride. I mean, it's a very different experience. It's amazing. This is a problem. Definitely a problem. So I don't know if the microphone's even picking that up, but there's this real just whine that comes with it. Almost a bit, well, if I say a squeak, that kind of sounds terrible. But yeah, it's just, it's not silent, and you can still hear more wind noise than anything else, but there is definitely a feeling of speed and power that goes with it. So I just thought I'd take it up Holme Moss and see how it is up here. Certainly no problem with the torque to push the bike up. So one thing that I was slightly worried about, and still am if I'm honest, is the range on these things. So when I took this bike out, it said it had a 75 mile range. The battery wasn't full, but it was full enough. And I think I've done maybe 20 miles tops, and it's now showing 29. Now, I know some of that is based on how you ride it. Oh, here's a chance. Let's see what it'll do around here. Look at that. That's just pinned. And that just took off. A lot of it comes down to how you ride it, which affects the battery life. But that just went from 29 to 26 with one overtake. Now, I know that's not how you're going to be riding all the time, and it is just going to be bursts like that. But there's no chargers around here. I'm just coming up to the top of Holme Moss. So if I ran out up here, I mean, I guess I can freewheel back down the hill, but not a lot else. So now down to 25 after just a few more meters and pulling up the hill. So I'm just going to head up to the top, and then I'm going to turn around and give you a few thoughts on the bike, and then I'm going to head back to the dealer, and I'm hoping that I've got enough battery to do that. They have left a charging cable in it, so I guess I could find a charging spot if it's looking low, but this was just on my first run out. There we go, now down to 23 miles. I'll just stop in here. So I've ridden up here to Holme Moss, and it's been quite a fun ride up. It's definitely a weird sensation with just the silence of the bike as you're going along. Hopefully I've got enough battery to get all the way back. It's been fun, it's been quiet. Didn't quite have the same pickup as I thought it might have done on the way up the hill when I did that overtake, but for an electric bike, given that I didn't really have any expectations, it's been really rather good. I'm not sure whether I'd go for this one if I did get one. I think maybe the naked one might be more useful because I can't see myself doing any long tours on it, but nevertheless, it's definitely an interesting thing. Right then, 22 miles back to the dealer, 23 miles range. Let's see how this goes. So I've been up and down here plenty of times on a bike, and it's a fun old ride, and actually it doesn't feel that different. I think you've got to be a little bit careful with the brakes because you almost forget just how much weight this bike is carrying, but the brakes certainly seem to be effective enough to make sure that none of the corners are a problem. Aha, so now my range has gone up to 24 miles, previously on 23, so maybe I will get back. Oh, bit of roadkill. So there's this left-hander when you go around the bend, and then there's the right-hander that brings you back. So yeah, still the silence is the thing that feels really weird. You know, I'm used to just coming over here, having my earplugs in, and there's nothing. It's just just all I can hear is like very slight whirring sound. So it really is weird. Maybe this is the sound of the future. So my range has gone up to 25 miles again. Okay, well that's one thing. It would be slightly embarrassing if I ran out of battery on my first outing on an electric bike. Now that was the first time doing that left-hander where I actually felt the weight of the batteries. Not terrible, but you know, it's maybe something that's slightly different compared to how a petrol bike would handle. So as I squeeze the brake lever, I can hear like a buzzing sound, and I'm wondering if that is actually the regenerative braking, whether it's generating battery power from the brakes. In fact, now it says range is 26 miles, so maybe just from coming back down that hill it has actually charged the battery up a little. So one thing that does seem a bit odd is that it's so quiet, is that people really don't hear you coming. There's a number of times I've seen people walking along the pavement, and they kind of, you know, they're walking away from you. You never know if they're about to cross the road, and because the bike is silent, they really don't hear it. The range is back up to 28 miles now. That was a good downhill stretch, so suddenly the range anxiety is drifting away. This is a relief. Yeah, young lads on mountain bikes wanted me to give it some, which I really don't think is quite the same on an electric bike as it is on a petrol bike with a noisy exhaust. I could almost see the disappointment in their eyes as I went past them. Riding this bike today really has been a revelation. I don't think the petrol bike is at the end of its life yet though. What I've seen is that certainly as the speeds creep up, that the range drops. So you can either ride slowly and go all day, or you can ride fast and reduce the range significantly. So where I think this really does have a place is for city riding. You know, it's just so easy to control, for almost like the replacement for a twist and go scooter, but one that will also, you know, overtake almost everything and just have an incredible amount of power and torque. So I think in that space, and I think for city riding, I think this is not only the future, I think this is now. Will I be replacing my petrol bikes with electric bikes? I don't think so, but I might replace one of them with one electric bike. The screen that's on this bike doesn't actually give that much wind protection. I don't know if you can see from the camera angle, but it's barely above my elbows, and because of the geometry of the bike and my size, it's not something I'm ever going to get behind really, and actually to go at those sorts of speeds on this bike, I suspect the battery life will be diminished massively. So I think if I did get one, I'd probably be looking more at the naked one, which was in the dealers. I'll show you a closer look at that when I get back there. But yeah, it's comfortable enough riding position, enough leg room, and I'm 6'1". It's really quiet to ride. The acceleration is just mind-blowing. Having said that, when I was going up Holme Moss and overtook the car on my way up, I don't know if that was actually quicker than doing it in third gear on my GS with a quick shifter. Certainly a lot quieter, and it's difficult to compare really, unless you were doing them exactly side by side. But yeah, definitely a very, very interesting prospect. And just looking at the range that I have now, it's now on 22 miles, even though I'm probably halfway back to the dealership. They were saying 23 miles when I just got to the top of Holme Moss, so I guess that was looking at that climate speed up the last bit that just massively dropped the range that was shown. So further to what I was saying before about the size of the windscreen, I'm coming along here, I'm doing, well, getting on 60 miles an hour, and actually there is quite a lot of buffeting. A lot of that's just because the screen is so low and is so small, and if anything, it's just directing all that wind sort of directly up and into my body. I'm sure it's glorious on a summer's day. It is still April here. I mean, it's lovely and sunny, but it's not actually that warm. So yeah, I'm not sure that the screen on here makes that much difference. They did have a different version of this bike with a taller screen, which I'm sure would help a lot. I don't think it looked particularly great with the big screen on it, but I guess yeah, it's that balance of what's practical and what looks good. So for the very last bit of my test ride, I'm just going to do a very short stretch of the M1 motorway, just to see what that does both to the battery life and how the bike handles at 70 miles an hour. Certainly get to 70 easily enough, and there's no problem with the acceleration to get there. There is quite a lot of breeze at this speed, but that's the screen as much as anything, but it's not uncomfortable and it's not unpleasant. So yeah, my range is currently at 12 miles. I'm wondering if that's going to start counting down very quickly. It's going to get past this truck, so if I pin that at 70, it will pull past, but it does take it a moment to get up. So I think that is very different to a petrol bike. You know, if I did that on my GS, I'd be off and down the road. So yeah, so I think for city riding, and I think for you know, country lanes where you're doing sort of slower than these speeds, then I think an electric bike is definitely there. You know, it's the future, and it's definitely worth a go. I think for doing longer journeys, particularly for any motorway travel, that's dropped down, actually I see, from 12 to 10 mile range already. So I've only got a couple of miles before I'm back to the dealer, but I could see that if I had to ride for any distance on the motorway, that I'd get through my batteries pretty quickly. So we have it. That was a little motorway bit. It was fine, but yeah, my range dropped by 3 miles in 2 miles just from doing that short stretch, and that was between 60 and 70. So just my final thoughts then as I ride this last bit. Love where the mirrors are, except if you've got a GoPro it's not easy to have a quick glance to see if it's on. Not a problem for most people. The heated grips were on it when I got on it. It was easy enough to find the menu to turn those off, but they were nice and toasty. It is quite a smallish bike, I guess. You know, I mean, I don't feel cramped, but I don't feel like there's a whole lot of room on it. not compared to my GS, and I find the riding position a little bit forward. I think if I had this particular bike, I'd probably put some bar risers on, but again, they're probably not making it specifically for me. So yeah, almost back at the dealer, so I'm going to pull in here. I will give it back to them, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Just using this as an opportunity to show you like the boot on the bike. So there's an extra keyhole under here, and when I turn that, it just pops up. So at the moment this has just got the charging cable in here, but I've used it just to stash my my microphones and stuff for the ride. That was a lot of fun. So then I'm back at Not Your Average Bikes, and I've just had a really fun hour or so out on the Zero SR. Yeah, if you've never ridden one, you should definitely give one a go. I think they are the future, and they are coming. It is a little bit different to a petrol bike, but just having that power always there, and just that acceleration is just brilliant. I did get a little bit of range anxiety, but it turned out it was fine. If you're going to do a lot of mountain passes, I guess you're going to get used to seeing the range drop as you go up, and then you're going to get that back when you come back down again. I think from a practical perspective, if you've got somewhere safe to keep it where you can charge it, I think they're great. And now that the faster charger options are becoming available with the DC charging, I think they might even be becoming sort of longer distance options. I think for me, it's probably something that would replace maybe my CB1000R. So something that I wouldn't necessarily take on long journeys, but to be able to nip into either of the cities that are near me, or even just to go and have a bit of a play for an hour or two. I think, yeah, it's definitely something that will be in my future at some point. Anyway, I hope this has been interesting and useful. If it has, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot. So this is the other version of the bike, the naked one without the fairing. It was in a nice candy apple red that's a lot like my Honda CB1000R. So in here at Not Your Average Bikes, they've actually got another one which has had a few customisations done to it, with the bars off an XSR 900. As if you look down the back there, you can see the pillion pegs have been removed, and also put a tail tidy on it and got rid of the shock. It seems to be a thing these days that there's these big old number plate holders on the back bumper that could really just move up. But yeah, nice looking bikes. We shall see what happens over the next few months.